Your mind is your greatest asset, your most powerful weapon, and yet the most fragile tool you possess, unless you take the time to train it. The man who learns to master his own mind, to hold it steady when everything around him trembles, is a man who can shape the course of his destiny. It's not the storm outside that determines your future, it's how still you can stay within it. When pressure mounts and emotions run high, the average person reacts. But you are not average. You don't train to react. You train to respond. You train your mind to pause, to breathe, to analyze. When chaos enters the room, you don't add to it. You calm it. You become the calm. That is power, that is discipline. That is the difference between the person who bends with the wind and the one who stands rooted while the storm passes. Your circumstances will test you. People will doubt you. Setbacks will try to break you. But none of it has the authority to shake your mind unless you allow it. Every time you choose peace over panic, control over impulse, patience over anger, you forge mental steel. You do not wait for life to be easy to find calm. You make calm your baseline, your foundation, your home. Do you know why so many fall apart under pressure? Because they never practiced being still when it didn't matter. They never took the time to prepare their mind for when it would matter. They never trained in the silence, so they cracked in the noise. But not you. You are deliberate. You prepare. You condition your thoughts like an athlete conditions his body. Not once, but daily, relentlessly, with purpose. You don't let your mind run on autopilot. You command it. You guard your focus like a gatekeeper. You question your thoughts before accepting them. You decide what gets to live in your head and what gets kicked out the second it tries to shake your center. You don't chase calm, you create it. You don't hope for peace, you build it inside yourself, so deeply that no outside chaos can find a way in. And when adversity strikes, and it will, you don't panic, you don't flinch, you rise, calmly, quietly, unshakably, because you know that storms don't last, but strong minds do, because strength is not in the noise, it's not in the outburst, it's not in the one who raises their voice first or points their finger fastest. Strength is in the one who controls the fire burning inside and uses it to forge discipline, not destruction. You don't let emotions make decisions for you. You don't let fear drive the wheel. You step back even when everything inside you wants to react. That's control. That's what separates those who lead from those who follow chaos. To train your mind is to train your entire life, because your mind touches every moment, every word you speak, every move you make, every outcome you create. It all begins in the mind. You can have ambition, talent, skill, even opportunity, but if your mind is undisciplined, unstable, if it crumbles under pressure, everything else falls with it. Your mind is the foundation, so you build it solid, brick by brick, day by day. And let me tell you something important. This isn't about pretending. It's not about faking peace while boiling underneath. No, this is about real mastery. This is about rewiring your brain to process pressure differently. It's about practicing stillness, not just when things are quiet, but especially when they're not. When your phone won't stop ringing, when problems hit you back to back, when the people around you lose their grip, you don't join them. You stay in control. Why? Because that calm gives you power. Power to see what others miss. Power to think clearly when others panic. Power to act when others freeze. Calm is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is strategy. When you stay calm, you buy yourself time. Time to think, time to plan, time to move intelligently. You don't get dragged into emotional chaos. You rise above it. Every time you choose to stay calm in a difficult moment, you're rewiring your brain. You're telling yourself, this situation does not control me. I control how I respond to it. That's real growth. That's mental transformation. You're building mental calluses, slayers of strength that prepare you for bigger battles. You're not running from difficulty. You're conditioning yourself to walk through it like a warrior with purpose. And it doesn't just happen once, it's a lifestyle. You train in the small moments so that when the big ones come, you're already prepared. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you train. When someone speaks to you with disrespect, you train. When life throws you off your plan, you train. You don't wait for a breakdown to start building your mind. You build it before the breakdown ever has a chance to come. You must learn to sit with discomfort, to breathe through frustration, to pause in the middle of intensity. Not everything needs a reaction. Not every problem needs your energy. Sometimes silence is your best weapon. Stillness is your sharpest blade. When you don't give in to the moment, you own the moment. And the one who owns the moment owns the outcome. There is a difference between peace and numbness, between being calm and being careless. Don't confuse the two. You're not numbing yourself to reality, you're just choosing not to be ruled by it. You're not escaping pressure, you're transforming it into clarity. You're stepping into the eye of the storm and saying, here, in this place, I will remain steady. I will not be moved. And this mindset, it spreads. Calm is contagious. When you walk into a room and your presence says, I'm unbothered, I'm prepared, I'm grounded, people feel it, they lean on it, they trust it, because calm people become leaders without ever asking for it. Their energy speaks before they do. Their steadiness invites respect. You'll notice something too. The stronger your mind becomes, the less you need to prove. You stop over-explaining. You stop reacting to criticism. You stop chasing validation, because when your peace is rooted internally, external noise becomes irrelevant. You become immune to gossip, unshaken by judgment, resistant to manipulation. Not because you don't feel it, but because you've trained yourself to rise above it. And don't think for a second that you can't start now. Training your mind doesn't require perfect conditions. It requires commitment. Start small. Practice breathing when you're stressed. Practice pausing before responding. Practice observing your thoughts instead of obeying them. That is the beginning. That's where the shift begins. Your mind wants comfort. It will always reach for the easy way out. But you don't listen to what's easy. You listen to what's effective. You make calm your default, not your exception. You develop rituals, routines, habits that support your inner peace. You protect your mental energy like it's sacred, because it is. You don't waste your attention on things that drain you. You're intentional, selective, strategic. Understand this. Peace is not the absence of chaos. It is the ability to stay focused and faithful through it. And life will always test your peace. People will try to provoke you. Circumstances will try to shake you. But the more you train, the less they succeed. Not because the world gets easier, but because you get stronger. You can feel fear and not follow it. You can feel anger and not unleash it. You can feel pressure and not collapse under it. That's emotional intelligence. That's mental toughness. That's what separates the driven from the drifting, the deliberate from the distracted, the unbreakable from the unstable. You've got to decide right now that you're no longer available for emotional chaos, no longer available for reactive living. You don't wake up and hope for peace, you wake up and create it. You don't leave your mental state in the hands of others. You own it. You discipline it. You sharpen it. You turn your mind into your ally instead of your enemy. And yes, you will fail sometimes. You'll slip. You'll react. You'll lose your cool. That's not the end. That's part of the process. Every time you catch yourself and return to calm, you're getting better. Every time you fall and get up with more awareness, you're evolving. Training your mind isn't about perfection, it's about progress. You keep showing up. You keep doing the work. Think of every difficult moment as a test and also a teacher. What is it teaching you? What strength is it asking you to develop? What clarity is it forcing you to find? The situation isn't the problem, it's your perception of it. And perception can be reshaped, controlled, refined. You are not a slave to your first reaction. You are not bound to your old programming. You can create new patterns, stronger patterns, smarter patterns. And the more you practice, the faster your recovery. What used to trigger you for hours now barely shakes you. What used to overwhelm you now rolls off your shoulders. Because you've done the work, because you've turned discipline into a lifestyle, because you've trained your mind to respond with power instead of panic. This is how you separate yourself. Not by outshouting others, not by overcompensating, but by being the one who stays calm when others break, being the one who holds the vision when others lose sight, being the one who sees opportunity where others see only crisis. Because calm isn't passive, it's purposeful. It's where you find your edge. And once you find that edge, once you learn to operate from that place of calm strength, nothing can stop you. You become a force, not because you push harder, but because you move smarter. Not because you fight everything, but because you choose your battles and you always fight them with clarity. So keep training, keep practicing, keep refining. The world is noisy, but your mind doesn't have to be. Let others chase chaos. You, on the other hand, become the calm in the center of it all. That's where your power lives. That's where your future is built. And the truth is, it's not just about power. It's about freedom. When your mind is calm, you're free. Free from the pull of emotional extremes. Free from being hijacked by other people's drama. Free from reacting to every trigger the world throws your way. That kind of freedom is rare. Most people are prisoners of their own mind. Their thoughts race, their fears drive them, their past defines them. But not you. You train, you choose, you lead. You lead your mind like a disciplined general leads his troops. No thought enters without permission. No fear lingers without being confronted. No emotion grows wild without being pruned. You command your internal world, and by doing that you influence your external world, because when your inner world is in order, your outer world starts to reflect it. People respond to you differently. Doors open. Respect follows. You can't buy that kind of presence. You earn it through repetition, through discipline, through the quiet hours where no one's watching, and you choose growth over comfort. That's when the mental muscles are built, in the silence, in the solitude, when it would be easy to scroll, to escape, to numb. And you don't. Instead, you observe your mind, you breathe deeper, you ask better questions, you catch the storm before it hits and choose a different path. And yes, there will be times when your peace is tested beyond what you thought you could handle. Moments when it feels like the pressure is too much, when the weight of the world lands on your shoulders. But that's the final exam for the mental warrior. That's the moment where all your preparation gets put into play. That's the moment when you decide whether you're going to be ruled by the outside or led by the inside. Let others panic. Let others crumble. You stay rooted. You don't rush your decisions. You don't let urgency force you into foolishness. You've trained your mind to pause, to think, to choose, not just to act. That's what separates the strong from the scattered, the deliberate from the desperate. And you get there not by accident, but by intention. You build practices into your life that protect your peace. You start your mornings with stillness. You review your thoughts like a coach reviewing plays. You journal, you reflect, you reset. You don't carry yesterday's chaos into today's mission. You release what doesn't serve you. You focus on what fuels you. You let go of what drains you, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because clarity isn't given, it's created. And calm isn't automatic, it's earned. You keep showing up, not for others, but for yourself. You make it your job to become a fortress of mental strength, not so you can escape life's challenges, but so you can face them without flinching, so you can walk through fire without catching flame, so you can be the one people look to when everything around them falls apart. And here's the secret most don't understand. When you learn to master your calm, you move faster, not in panic, but in precision. You cut through noise. You waste no energy on drama. You focus your full power on progress. That's what gives you the edge. Not emotion, not volume, not stress, but calm, precision, poise. The person who stays calm in crisis wins, period. Because while everyone else is reacting, they're planning. While others are lashing out, they're listening. While others are drowning in chaos, they're building their next move. You become dangerous when you are calm, not reckless, not reactive. Dangerous in the sense that you are unstoppable, focused, clear. That's the highest form of strength. And that kind of strength, true strength, is forged in resistance. You welcome adversity not because you enjoy it, but because you use it. You let difficulty reveal where your training still needs work. You don't avoid discomfort, you lean into it. You let it teach you, sharpen you, make you better. That's what training is. Repetition under resistance. Every hard moment is a chance to level up, to reinforce the calm you've been building. And you never stop building. You never say, I've arrived. No, you stay a student of your own thoughts, of your own triggers. You know that the ego wants to think it's finished, but the mind is never finished. The mind needs constant sharpening, constant awareness, constant attention. You don't coast on past progress. You keep moving forward, one moment of discipline at a time. That's how mental dominance is created. Not in grand declarations, not in fake confidence, but in quiet mastery, in consistent, invisible work. The kind no one sees, but everyone eventually feels. People start to notice there's something different about you. You're not shaken, you're not reactive. You don't match chaos with chaos, you meet it with calm. You stay composed when others are breaking. That's power, and over time that calm becomes your identity. It's no longer something you do, it's who you are. You're the one who speaks when it matters, acts with intention, lives with clarity. You don't give your energy to battles that don't build you. You don't waste your focus on things that don't deserve it. You conserve your strength, and when it's time to strike, you strike with precision. That level of calm, it builds trust. People follow those who are unshaken, not because they never feel fear, but because they don't act from it, because they've trained themselves to recognize fear, look it in the eye, and move anyway. That's what you're doing. You're becoming a leader not by title, but by presence, by energy, by consistency. And it all comes back to one thing: training. You don't wait for the storm to train. You train so you can handle the storm. You don't hope you'll stay calm. You prepare to stay calm. You do it every day. You catch the thoughts that spiral. You challenge the fears that rise. You hold your ground when your emotions try to push you around. You understand that just because a thought is loud doesn't mean it's true. Just because a feeling is intense doesn't mean you must follow it. You get better at separating emotion from action. You start asking, is this useful? Instead of, how do I feel? You prioritize what moves you forward, not what temporarily soothes you. That's how empires are built. That's how lives are transformed, not by reacting to every wave, but by becoming the rock beneath them. Still, present, immovable, not passive, powerful. Because you've learned to lead yourself. You've trained your mind to be your servant, not your master. You've made calm your default. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And when the world doesn't make sense, when things break, people disappoint, plans fall apart, you don't. You adapt, you adjust, you breathe, you lead. That's the mark of true mental strength. That's what you've been building. That's who you've been becoming. Quietly, relentlessly, unshakably, calm, always. Calm is not just a mindset, it's a way of life. It becomes the lens through which you see everything. You don't allow your peace to be negotiable. You don't hand it over to anyone, no matter how justified the chaos may seem. You learn to walk into the heat without absorbing it. You learn to observe intensity without becoming it. You become a witness to emotion, not a puppet of it. There's a level of power that comes from not having to react. From knowing you could explode, but you don't. From knowing you could dominate a room with your voice, but you choose silence instead. That's when you're no longer driven by the need to prove anything. You've already proven it to yourself. You know who you are. You know what you're building. And nothing outside of you deserves the power to steer that ship off course. That kind of inner control creates external influence. People gravitate to calm, not because it's loud, but because it's rare. Because in a world obsessed with attention and reaction, calm is rebellion. Calm is leadership. Calm is confidence that doesn't need a spotlight. And that's what you're shaping. Every single time you refuse to be rattled, you are crafting an internal foundation that no storm can shake. When others shout, you listen. When others panic, you assess. When others move impulsively, you wait. Because you understand that the best move is not always the fastest, it's the one that comes from clarity. You don't need to be first, you need to be right. You need to be wise, you need to be intentional. That is how you win over the long run. Not by reacting to the moment, but by respecting the mission. And let's be honest. Calm doesn't mean you don't feel. You're not a machine. You're human. You feel the pressure. You feel the weight. But the difference is, you don't let it drive you. You let it inform you, but not consume you. You allow emotion to pass through like weather, not permanent, just present. You don't deny your feelings. You discipline them. You don't suppress your mind. You strengthen it. That's the work. That's the practice. It takes a different level of strength to be calm when everything in you wants to scream, when everything outside of you is designed to provoke, to trigger, to pull you into the chaos. But your discipline is stronger than their noise. Your vision is louder than their distractions. You don't let someone's lack of control shake yours. You don't fall into patterns that don't serve your purpose. You train in the ordinary so that you perform in the extraordinary. You handle the small annoyances with grace because that's how you prepare for the big ones. You pause when it would be easier to snap. You breathe when it would be easier to react. You hold space between the trigger and the response. And in that space you own your power. That's where your growth lives, in the space between what happens and how you choose to meet it. And every time you choose calm, you expand that space. You increase your power. You extend your influence over yourself. Because the truth is, no one can take your calm. It can only be surrendered. Your peace is not something that gets stolen. It's something you give up when you forget who you are. But when you train, when you stay rooted, you stop giving it away. You stop being available for chaos. You stop being pulled into battles that don't align with your mission. You begin to realize that not every situation deserves your energy. Not every insult deserves a reply. Not every opinion deserves a response. You don't need to fight every fire. You've learned to let some things burn. Because not every flame is your responsibility. You've mastered the art of stillness in the presence of noise. You've learned that sometimes the most powerful move is not to move at all. Because calm is strategic, it's not passive. It's positioning. It allows you to see the full board, not just the current piece. It lets you operate with foresight, not just reaction. It gives you leverage. It gives you poise. It gives you freedom. And that's the advantage you carry. You're not operating out of survival. You're moving with design, with discipline, with depth. When you build calm, you build trust in yourself and from others. You trust that you don't have to rush. You trust that time is your ally, not your enemy. You trust that pressure doesn't define you, it reveals you. And others see that, they feel that. Your calm becomes a mirror. It reflects your strength back at them. It shows them what's possible. It inspires without speaking. It leads without shouting. And you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be consistent. You need to keep choosing calm, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's when the shift happens. That's when the transformation becomes permanent. Not when it's easy, but when it's tested. When you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you're pushed past your edge, and still you choose calm. That decision, it's everything. It rewrites your identity. It reshapes your self-image. It becomes your reputation. People don't just remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel. And when they feel safe in your presence, when they feel steady because you are steady, you become unforgettable. Not for being loud, but for being real. For being the calm they couldn't find anywhere else. And that's legacy. That's impact. That's purpose. To be a presence that stabilizes the environment. To be someone who brings peace where there is tension. To be a source of clarity in a world addicted to chaos. That's the work you're doing. It's not just personal, it's powerful. It's not just internal, it's influential. And it starts with you. It starts every morning when you decide who you're going to be in the face of the world's noise. You don't rise by force, you rise by focus. By training your attention to stay grounded. By refusing to be distracted by the irrelevant. By knowing that the real battle is not out there, it's in your mind. And when you win there, you win everywhere else. Because everything you do is a reflection of your mental state. And when that state is rooted in calm, everything else aligns. So you keep training. You keep returning to the breath. You keep catching yourself in the moment and saying, no, I don't need to react. I'm bigger than this. That choice, that refusal to be pulled down is what separates you. That's what creates your edge. Not aggression, not speed, calm, grounded, focused, controlled. You know where you're going so you don't chase every distraction. You know what matters so you don't get pulled into emotional trap. You've trained your mind to be a compass, not a leaf in the wind. And that's what will carry you through the hardest seasons. That's what will keep you steady when the road gets rough. That's what makes you unshakable. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of discipline. Not the removal of challenge, but the rise of control. You've mastered your mind, not once, but daily. Not in theory, but in action. And that is what turns calm from a feeling into a force. That is what makes you unstoppable. And the beauty of it is, this strength isn't reserved for the special few. It's not some genetic gift or mysterious trait handed out at birth. It's earned, it's built, it's chosen, moment by moment, breath by breath. Every time you choose stillness over rage, discipline over impulse, clarity over confusion, you are sharpening your blade. You are fortifying your foundation. You begin to recognize patterns, the same ones that used to derail you. The triggers that once sent you spiraling, they now become signals, not threats, just information. A feeling of frustration, that's your opportunity to investigate, not explode. A wave of anxiety, that's your cue to breathe deeper, not run faster. You don't resist these emotions, you use them. You alchemize them into something greater. Because everything you experience is a tool in the hands of someone who is awake. The calm mind doesn't shut out the world. It listens to it more clearly. It doesn't deny reality. It sees it for what it is. Without distortion, without drama. A calm mind is honest. It accepts the truth without panic. And from that place of acceptance, it takes decisive action. There's no more pretending, no more reacting from ego, just pure presence. And from presence, true power is born. You realize that energy is everything. Where you place your attention, what you give your time to, who you allow into your space. All of it affects your state. So you become intentional. You cut out noise, you remove chaos, you protect your peace like it's gold, because it is. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not every situation deserves a response. You're not reactive, you're selective. And that's not arrogance, it's clarity. When you know your value, you don't let the world define it. You don't measure your worth through the lens of reaction. You measure it by your ability to stay rooted, to stay centered, to stay aligned when everything tries to pull you off course. And alignment doesn't mean perfection. It means integrity. It means you show up the same regardless of circumstances. There is a fire that burns inside you, but it doesn't rage out of control. It's not wild, it's focused, it's aimed. That fire is your drive, your mission, your refusal to quit. But you've trained yourself not to let it consume you. You've placed it in the furnace of discipline, and now it fuels you with intensity without destruction. That's what separates the volatile from the unshakable. They both feel deeply, but only one leads with wisdom. You also begin to understand that chaos is often a reflection of others, not you. Just because someone brings disruption doesn't mean you have to host it. Just because the world is loud doesn't mean you have to match its volume. You become a mirror that reflects peace back into every room you walk into, not because you force it, but because it radiates from you. And when people try to test you, because they will, they expect reaction, they expect you to crack, they expect the old version of you. But you've outgrown that skin. You don't live in those responses anymore. You've evolved. And in your evolution, you've created distance, not from people, but from the patterns that once controlled you. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for your growth. You know what you're building. You know what's at stake, and you refuse to sabotage your future just to satisfy your temporary emotions. That's the level of discipline that changes everything. When you stop trading your peace for approval, when you stop trading your power for the pleasure of being right, when you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Calm doesn't need validation. It's self-contained. It exists on its own terms, and that's what makes it so rare, so magnetic, so untouchable. Because in a world of overreaction, the one who controls themselves controls the room. The one who listens while others speak in circles becomes the one everyone turns to when real decisions must be made. And there's a quiet joy in that, in being the one who doesn't flinch, in being the one who holds the line. Not because you're trying to prove your worth, but because you already know it. Your calm becomes your compass. It keeps you steady in relationships, in leadership, in uncertainty, in pain. It grounds you when the ground beneath you shakes, and it guides you through storms others get lost in. It also transforms how you deal with failure, because the calm mind doesn't personalize every setback. It analyzes it, it studies, it adjusts, it learns. You start to see failure as information, not identity. You begin to detach from the outcomes and fall in love with the process, because you realize that mastery isn't about always winning. It's about never stopping, never folding, never losing yourself, even when things don't go your way. That's what makes you dangerous in the best way. You're not emotional about everything. You're not fragile. You don't need constant reassurance. You're self-sourced, self-leaded. That's why you can be calm, because you trust yourself. You trust your ability to respond. You trust your capacity to adapt. You trust that no matter what shows up, you will figure it out. And from that trust, you operate with poise. You don't chase, you attract. You don't plead, you present. You don't force, you flow. And when obstacles come, and they will, you meet them with courage, not chaos. You meet them with the eyes of a trained warrior who has faced their own shadow and come out clear on the other side. Because you know the real war isn't outside, it's within. It's the war against the old self, the impulsive self, the easily triggered self, the self that needed to be liked, that needed to be loud, that needed to prove something. You've buried that version, and in its place stands someone who doesn't flinch when tested, someone who doesn't fold when squeezed, someone who doesn't flee when emotions get heavy. You've learned that real peace is earned through fire, through sweat, through repetition, through choosing a higher path when a lower one is screaming for your attention. And that choice, over and over again, rewires your very being. You don't just become calm, you are calm. It's your nature now. Not because life is easy, but because you become steady. You've trained your mind to stop seeking comfort and start seeking growth. You've trained your nervous system to stay regulated even in chaos. You've trained your spirit to stay open even when it's hurt. And in doing so, you've become powerful in the deepest sense of the word. Not dominating, commanding. Not aggressive, anchored. Not invulnerable, but unshakable. Because the goal was never to eliminate challenge. The goal was to become someone who cannot be broken by it. And you've done that. You're doing it every single time you choose to sit in discomfort rather than escape. Every time you speak with clarity instead of reaction. Every time you pause before you respond. That's the work. That's the path. That's the transformation. And it's far from over. Because this journey doesn't end. There is no final level. No ultimate arrival. Just deeper presence, sharper discipline, greater strength. You will still be tested. Life will still throw curveballs. But now you have the tools. You have the mindset. You have the identity. And most importantly, you have the calm. Always. And with that calm comes a different rhythm of life. You no longer move according to the world's panic. You move according to your own pace. You act from principle, not pressure. And that pace, that deliberate, composed way you carry yourself, it tells a story of someone who has been through fire but refused to become ash. Someone who has heard the noise but chose the silence. Someone who could have broken but instead chose to build. You see, people often mistake calm for weakness. They think silence is submission. They think patience is passive. They don't understand what it takes to hold your ground when every nerve in your body wants to lash out, to argue, to fight, to prove. But you've come to know that real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It just is. Quiet, powerful, unbothered. You've learned that there's no victory in being reactive, no success in being controlled by fleeting emotion. You've felt the emptiness that follows impulsive words. You've tasted the regret that comes from letting emotion dictate your choices. And from that place you decided, never again. Not because you're cold, not because you don't feel, but because you've chosen to feel deeply, without being ruled by the feeling. So now you breathe differently. You see differently. When something unexpected hits, you don't flinch. You lean in. You ask questions instead of making accusations. You pause instead of pouncing. You reflect instead of retaliating. And in that pause, you gain something most people never do. Clarity, perspective, wisdom. Because clarity is the gift that calm brings. It gives you the space to see what matters and let go of what doesn't. And the more you practice this, the more unshakable you become. You stop needing things to go your way. You stop depending on the external to feel internal peace. You become adaptable, resilient, grounded in a way that makes you unstoppable. Not because nothing can touch you, but because nothing can own you. Life is never going to stop testing you. People will still be difficult. Plans will still fall apart. Delays will still come. But now you understand. The test is not in what happens, it's in how you respond. And with each test you refine yourself. With each challenge you elevate. With each moment of chaos you prove to yourself that you are no longer ruled by it. You don't chase control anymore, you embody it. Not by dominating the world, but by mastering yourself. You don't control circumstances, you control your reaction. That is the deepest level of power a person can reach. The power to choose how you show up, regardless of what's thrown at you. The power to stay anchored even when the current gets rough. You've trained for this. Every moment of silence you embraced. Every breath you took instead of exploding. Every hard conversation you approached with poise instead of panic. Those were reps. Reps in the mental gym, building something no one else can see but everyone can feel. And you're not just doing this for yourself. Your calm is a service. A leadership tool, a gift to those around you, because when you stay grounded, you give others permission to do the same. Your presence becomes a stabilizer. Your energy becomes medicine in a world that's constantly spinning. You don't just walk into the room, you shift it. Not with volume, but with vibration. You don't need to be right to have impact. You don't need to dominate to lead. You don't need to shout to be heard. You are heard because people trust your tone, your intention, your steadiness. They see that you aren't swayed by the temporary, and that makes them want to follow your lead. Not because you force them to, but because calm attracts loyalty. And you understand something now that many never will. Calm is a daily discipline, a practice. It doesn't come automatically. It's not some magical trait. It's earned. Every morning you wake up and recommit to your values. Every night you reflect instead of numb. Every time you make peace a priority, not a privilege. You've also learned that calm is not about avoiding hard truths. It's about facing them head-on without being consumed by them. It's about having the tough conversations, making the tough calls, setting the boundaries, walking away when necessary, not out of anger but out of clarity. Calm isn't about being passive, it's about being precise, exact, intentional. And this precision spills over into every part of your life. Your work, your relationships, your goals. You stop rushing, you stop forcing, you become efficient, not frantic, focused, not scattered. You move with a rhythm that allows for excellence without exhaustion. Because calm sharpens your focus. It strips away the unnecessary. It leaves only what truly matters. And what matters most is not what the world sees, it's what you feel when you're alone. When the noise fades and it's just you and your thoughts. Are you proud of the way you showed up today? Did you lead with integrity? Did you hold the line when everything in you wanted to let go? That's the real scoreboard. That's what tells you if you're living right. You've learned to